In this WrestleTalk news, WWE reacts to losing Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson, WWE's shocking pitch to keep Cole, and my review of Raw. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on, not only for daily wrestling news videos during one of the most exciting times ever in the business, but also because at 810,000 subscribers, which we're only 6 away from at the time of recording, I'm gonna do a forward roll. They said it couldn't be done. Maybe it can't, but I will try.
Support WrestleTalk!
Tony Khan has now fully embraced your favourite wrestler to AEW confirmed, with Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, Ruby Soho and murder grandpa Minoru Suzuki all showing up at Sunday's All Out pay-per-view. The debuts were so well received, 90% of the WrestleTalk podcast viewers rated the show 5 out of 5, with many commenting it was their favourite show ever next to WrestleMania X7. Fightful Select is reporting that people backstage in WWE were not at all surprised by Cole signing with All Elite Wrestling, as much of the company expected him to be headed to AEW as of last weekend. WWE were in fact operating on the assumption he was as good as gone after his contract extension finished. As Cole noted in the post-All Out media scrum, both he and WWE were caught unaware when his contract expired in July, with both parties believing it wasn't up until December. When that news broke, it was reported that Cole had a meeting with Vince McMahon at SmackDown, where Vince reportedly liked the guy and told him that both Raw and SmackDown would come up with pitches for him on the main roster. And now Ringside News, so do take this with a pinch of salt, have revealed what the big, possibly contract-renewing pitch was. Make him a heel manager on SmackDown. WWE allegedly wanted to go a totally different way with Cole's talents and utilise his speaking ability above everything else. Apparently, Raw and SmackDown's executive director Bruce Pritchard really put the hooks into Cole and wanted him to stay. Shockingly, Cole turned them down and went to AEW, where presumably he will be a wrestler. Ringside News has also revealed the internal reaction to Danielson and Cole signing with AEW, saying people behind the scenes saw them leaving WWE as no big loss. This should come as no surprise. Fox were unhappy that WWE didn't try to sign CM Punk ahead of his AEW debut a few weeks ago, but it was reported that WWE had zero interest in bringing him back, saying that he can be AEW's headache instead. But maybe it's affecting Vince more than he's letting on, as he wasn't at last night's episode of Raw. PW Insider is reporting that Vince wasn't backstage for the Raw tapings last night, and Bruce Pritchard was instead left to run the show. However, he was involved with giving feedback and making some changes to the show, presumably like he did for the September 3rd edition of SmackDown, which he also wasn't present for. Before we get on with the rest of the episode, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to this episode's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends! It's nice to be back in the office, isn't it, Pete? Mm-hmm. Yep. Which you can download to your mobile phone or PC for free using my links below. If you've heard of Raid Shadow Legends, like Pete sure has, you'll know by now it has over 600 champions to play with, all from their own unique factions with a deep history and lore in the dark fantasy world of Teleria. And today we're going to have a look at fantasy's favourite heels, the Orcs. But in Raid, Orcs aren't that bad, they're just misunderstood. Created by the Dark Lord Siroth, their lands were annexed by a brutal war between the Banner Lords, High Elves, and Sacred Order. Now they're just trying to survive, so they've teamed up with Queen Eva of the Elves. But are they just going to be screwed over again? Play Raid's awesome campaign for the full story. The campaign mode and the character designs are my favourite parts about Raid. Just look at the Orcs' legendary champions detail, like Val the Destroyer and Iron Brago. And my main man, who I've had from the start of my Raid playing days, Gaelic, who's now at a very beefy level 30. And right now is a great time to start playing, with a huge new Doom Tower update with 2 new bosses, Astronix the Dark Fae and Bommel the Dreadhorn, where defeating them will give you powerful new artifact sets to win. And there's the new special event, the Super Raid, doubling your rewards and speeding up your in-game progress. If you want to get a huge head start, download Raid using our links in the video description below, or simply scan my QR code on screen now, and you'll get the epic hero Chanuru, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard to summon yourself another champion as soon as you get in the game. All this treasure will be waiting for new players here for the next 30 days. Raid have been huge supporters of WrestleTalk for years, so please do at least click the link and check them out, as every click helps us out too. Support WrestleTalk and raid that raid. Now it's time for my review of last night's Raw in about 5 minutes. The episode cold opened on a different, more classical wrestling feel, where each team involved in the night's tag team turmoil match cut a backstage promo, each getting over their own style and characters. Kofi Kingston is back with the New Day. Ali told Mansoor to focus on the win, and Mason T-Bar, I don't know, spoke about crushing bunnies or something. The main episode then began with RK Bro getting a huge reaction to their show opening in-ring promo. The focus on the tag division and tag team wrestling felt like a shot in the pandemic hangover arm of WWE. And the wrestling optimist in me started to believe that maybe, just maybe, WWE were going to start treating tag team wrestling with the respect it deserves in the face of competition. Oh no, it's just because they ran out of people to challenge Bobby for the title. Lashley came out and challenged Randy to a match after Orton had RKO'd him at the end of last week's show. Randy accepted, but only if the championship is on the line. And the Raw title match was made for Extreme Rules. Building tag team wrestling isn't the goal here. It's building Randy. And after a year of systematically picking apart their main event draws, Raw now has to lump all their men's championships together because they've run out of stars. Lucky for them, in the short term, that sets up quite an exciting interconnected series of feuds before they can course correct in the upcoming draft. The tag team turmoil match started with Gauntlet experts New Day versus the Viking Raiders, who got a strong victory over Jinder and Veer last week, setting both teams up as possible winners. Woods rolled up Ivar to win in some decent action. Speaking of Jinder and Veer, Mahal got rolled up by the New Day next in a match that mostly took place in the commercial break. Pinning Jinder shows just how far his stock has fallen in WWE. The New Day easily beat the Lucha House Party, and then out came Notribution, who did absolutely nothing. Woods rolled up Mace in a minute. In one of the best moments of the whole show though, Mason T-Bar then beat up the New Day. When the next turmoil entrance came down, Mansoor and Ali. Mansoor didn't even think about it. He's a babyface of the bluest-eyed order, and then just ran in to help the New Day. Ali, the wily veteran meanwhile, then reluctantly had to help too. Mason T-Bar laid everyone out, setting the stage for a next really good chapter, effectively skipping the first 2/3 of a normal match and going right into the New Day versus Mansoor and Ali, all noble babyfaces battered and bruised, slugging it out to see who advances. But WWE, who are usually very good at gauntlet matches, overbooked it for me. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville then announced the match will stop now and restart later to give everyone time to recover. This drastically reduced New Day's underdog momentum and Ali and Mansoor's comeback heat. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Superkick Nick Nazesco and Double L Liam Leonard. Go over to WrestleTalk's Patreon now for loads of exclusive contenting to get your own shout out. Sheamus beat Drew McIntyre in yet another very good match between them, thanks to grabbing a fistful of pants for the pin, but ultimately this was a match we've already seen before to set up another match we've already seen before. Sheamus versus Damian Priest for the US title, and Priest has beaten both of them. Raw's midcard is just treading water until the draft here. In typical WWE style, they miss a successful act's intangibles and think they can just duplicate it elsewhere, as we now have 3 odd couple tag teams on Raw. The latest is Rhea Ripley and almost a superhero Nikki, almost a superhero, who's trying to get over her super brutality joint catchphrase with none of the on-screen charisma of the other acts. Ripley pinned Natalya with the Riptide, setting up a tag team title shot. Just when you think Karrion Kross couldn't get any sadder, here he is in a Moist TV backstage interview surrounded by inflatables and floats. Thankfully, he ended up looking pretty decent, threatening Morrison backstage and then squashing him in the ring. But it feels like too little too late for Kross, and it's yet another loss for Morrison despite him building to a grudge match with The Miz. After their abysmal heel versus heel match last week, which reportedly descended into a breakdown in communication and they actually started slapping each other for realsies, we got Charlotte versus Nia Jax round 2, but this time, oh, it's for the title. and my attention span. They tried to lean into the shoot edge of last week's contest, pretending to really fight in what's already a pretend fight. And Nia weirdly lost to Charlotte after Shayna Baszler's half-hearted interference, seemingly setting up the latest split between them. Although who knows, and more importantly, who cares? As it feels they've split up and got back together with no explanation more times than me and Megan. At this point, can't we just talk about what keeps on going wrong between? Alexa Bliss then appeared on the screen to talk over Charlotte, making it seem like she was actually backstage, but then she appeared in the ring when the lights cut out, which was a genuine surprise. The crowd popped big for Bliss pointing at Flair's title. Reggie beat Akira Tozawa via flips, and then escaped the usual 24/7 title chase, which included Cedric Alexander, So Jealous, Jeff frickin' Hardy, and the return to the main roster of Drake Maverick. Biggest return of the year so far. Doudrop challenged Eva Marie to a rematch backstage despite never having an actual first match, and the main event was the rest of the tag team turmoil. Saw New Day beat Mansoor and Ali, who really are excellent together, but then fall to AJ Styles and Omos, setting up them against Bobby Lashley and MVP for the final. Despite the heel versus heel dynamic, this was a really exciting finish, with the crowd going banana for Omos locking up with Lashley. It's mad to make Bobby look so small. Lashley eventually won with a spear on AJ, but then got laid out by Omos afterwards, potentially setting up a Bobby versus Omos match for the future. Can you hear that sound? Can you hear it? That's a very happy Vince McMahon. WWE, to their credit, have been booking Omos perfectly. If only he could actually wrestle. Randy hit an RKO on Bobby from out of nowhere to close the show ahead of their big tag title match next week. What did you think of Raw? Let me know in the comments. 79% of you went for, wait, was that Jeff Hardy in the 24/7 title chase? In our poll on a poll match on the community tab. Even with a stalling middle, WWE showed once again that they do gauntlet matches better than any other promotion. The rest of the show, though, was pretty repetitive. This week's Raw is 3 out of 5.
Nice new helmet, Carrion. Jesus Christ, did you buy that from a party store called the Viking Experience? He looks like Shredder after his wife took everything in the divorce. He looks like the loneliest Roman at the orgy. He looks like someone going to Carnival dressed as Demolition. Looking forward to seeing the next step in the journey of history's most maligned man. Maybe he'll come out on Raw, fall over onto his bum, then his eyes will cross and he'll say, "Oh no, my bum, I fell on my big scary bum."